Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, news, and reviews. In today's video, we are doing the weekly Q&A, where you ask me questions and I answer them. Let's get started. The first question today is interesting yet simple. The question is, do you have kids? And the simple answer to that is yes, I have one child. She is between 10 and 12 years old. We're not quite sure. When my wife and I adopted her, there wasn't a lot of information about her. She's super lazy, she refuses to go to school, and she doesn't really listen that well at all. And she has pretty awful manners, but we do love her. Here she is right here. And now moving on to question number 2. Is the Samsung Galaxy A20 a good phone for gaming? I think this is a yes and a no answer. The A20 in my mind is a great phone for the price. I think it's a very good value. You will be able to play a lot of retro games. If that's what you're looking to do, then you're absolutely fine there. If you're looking to emulate all the way up to the N64 or even the PSP or PS1, the A20 should be able to handle it. However, it's not a great phone if you're looking to play games like Call of Duty or Fortnite or even PUBG. It's lacking a little bit in the processing power area when compared with some of the flagship phones. And if you're looking to emulate the GameCube or the 3DS with the A20, you might be a little disappointed. I don't think the A20 is there just yet for perfect emulation. In fact, the S20 is barely there for GameCube emulation right now, in my opinion. I think the next generation of phones will do a much better job with GameCube and 3DS, but unfortunately the A20 is probably not great for that. For all the other retro systems previous generation to that, it should be absolutely fine. The N64, the PS1, the Dreamcast, even the PSP, you should be fine with the A20. Next question, what are some of your favorite fighting games right now? This is an interesting one because I don't normally fixate and only play one fighting game. I like to play a whole bunch of different ones. There's so many great games out there and I find it very hard to dedicate a lot of time to one single fighting game. Right now I'm playing a lot of Granblue Fantasy Versus. I quite like that game. I quite like playing as Soren. I really like that character's playstyle. Quite a bit of fun. The online on that game is not the best, but I'm really enjoying arcade mode, which is kind of weird because a lot of people in the fighting game community strictly play online when they play fighting games, and I'm kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. I enjoy more playing in the arcade mode, and that way I can pause the game when I want and just kind of play the fighting game for a bit and maybe do something else on the side and then just go back into the game. So Granblue's up there. Street Fighter V is definitely up there. The game gets a lot of flack, but at the same time, I find it a lot of fun to play casually. Tekken 7's on the list, King of Fighters 14. I think King of Fighters 13 I actually quite like. And obviously the standards, Street Fighter Super Turbo, Third Strike, and Capcom vs SNK 2. Next question, the Rode mic looks so cool. Can you share the model number? No, I will not. I'm just joking with you. Absolutely. So it was the Rode NT USB Mini that I was using in my previous video. This is a USB-C microphone that plugs in. You can also monitor it with your headphones there if you want. This is a good little microphone. It does look really cool. I love the look of it. This stand is attached. I did do a full review of it and I will leave a link to that in the description below. I've since upgraded to the Electro Voice RE20, which is a completely different type of microphone. For the money, I liked the NT USB Mini here. I think it sounds better than the Blue Yeti. I think it sounds less tinny. Anyways, with my voice, something about the Blue Yeti sound I just didn't quite like. It took a lot of EQing and post-processing to make the Blue Yeti really shine. With this microphone, it sounded great just plugged in, just as it was. With some EQing on this using Voicemeeter or post-processing, this microphone sounded really, really nice, and I do recommend it. Next question, what alternatives are there to the Raspberry Pi? This is a very difficult question to answer because the Raspberry Pi is so multi-purpose. You can use it for retro gaming, you can use it as a home theater PC if you want, you can try to use it as a desktop PC, you can use it as a server, you can do a whole bunch of different things with it. So trying to find a direct replacement is very difficult if you use a Raspberry Pi for a bunch of different things. So in terms of alternatives for the Raspberry Pi, I would probably have to know what you're using the Raspberry Pi for in the first place to give you some ideas of other things on the market. Moving on to the next question. My wife has a Samsung Tab S2. It's slow and slowly dying. How would the new Samsung Galaxy S6 Lite versus the Tab A 10.1, both with 128 gigabytes, so she has plenty of memory for all of her books. She is an avid book reader. She does not like the Kindle platform. We are older seniors. Thank you so much for your feedback when you can. Well, I'm going to answer it in this week's Q&A. This is a very interesting question and one that's a pretty simple answer. In a nutshell, the S6 Lite is a better tablet than the Tab A 10.1. Whether or not you're going to notice a difference is another story altogether. If you're just reading books, either tablet will serve you absolutely fine. They're both considered mid-range tablets. You're not going with a low-end tier, you're not going top tier. So overall performance is relatively comparable. The S6 Lite does contain a little extra feature though. It contains the S Pen, which is a really neat little device. In my opinion, I'd probably go with the cheaper of the two options, whichever one that is. It's probably going to be the Tab A. But at the same time, if you are still debating, I would recommend going into the store because I think the S Pen is probably going to be the deciding factor between the two tablets. Next question, how do you feel about Apple using ARM chips for their latest MacBooks? Are ARM chips the future? I want to say this is an interesting question, but I've said that to almost every other question I've answered. This is an interesting question. I think this one is, I don't know, this is more speculation than anything. Apple moving to ARM chips for their MacBooks to me is a good play. I think it's a smart idea. Moving away from Intel is the right decision, I think, going with ARM architecture, especially in their ecosystem. Overall, though, I don't know if ARM will overtake x86 in the near future at all. And I don't think so for a couple of reasons. Performance-wise, I'm going to put performance out the window just for a minute. I know that's a huge part of it. But overall, I just think a lot of it will come down to software costs and compatibility. So, like, take the Raspberry Pi, for example. A lot of things don't work on the Pi because they're not compatible with ARM. They're compatible with, with the x86 architecture. So for big companies moving over software over to ARM, converting servers to ARM, that's a lot of money. That is quite a bit of money. And I don't necessarily see anyone moving to ARM as a total solution in the near future at all. And the last question, do you think Raspberry Pis will ever be a suitable replacement for a full desktop computer? This is an interesting question. I think personally it would depend on what you're trying to get out of the computer. Right now you can use a Raspberry Pi as a desktop replacement if you're doing simple things, web browsing, checking email, maybe using Office software. You can use, LibreOffice or something like that. YouTube videos at 720p, absolutely. And in the next few years, when we get a new Raspberry Pi, it'll probably do things even better. However, if you want to play AAA games with the best graphics possible, then probably not. If you take a look at the size of a GPU, and this isn't to say a larger computer component is better than a smaller computer component, but if you look at the intricacy that is in the circuit board on a GPU, the GPU itself is like 4, 5, 6 times the size of a Raspberry Pi. Heck, 2 RAM sticks are the size of a Raspberry Pi. So overall, that's not to say that bigger computer components are better, but current complexities and current performances with a modern desktop computer completely dwarf the performance from a Raspberry Pi. I think as more apps kind of move cloud-based, and if they're ARM compatible, it might make things a little more viable for the little Pi. But I think as a whole, it will be, I guess, as a whole, it could be a suitable replacement for some but not all users. Anyways, that is all I have for this week's video. If you have a question for next week's Q&A, let me know in the comments below, or you can send a question to q@mrsujano.com. I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, and if I answered any questions incorrectly, let me know in the comments below. Thank you everyone, take care.